Hi, we're Maren and Angela of Homeschool Unrefined. Over the past 25 years, we've been friends, teachers, homeschool parents, and podcasters together. With our master's degrees and 20 years combined homeschooling, we're here to rethink homeschooling, learning, and education with an inclusive and authentic lens.
At Homeschool Unrefined, we prioritize things like giving yourself credit, building strong connections, respectful parenting, interest-led playing and learning differences, mental health, self-care, and listening to and elevating LGBTQ+ and BIPOC voices.
We are here to encourage and support you, whether you're a new homeschooler, a veteran, you love curriculum, you're an unschooler, whether all your kids are at home or all your kids are in school or somewhere in between, wherever you are in your journey, we're the voice in your head telling you you're doing great and so are your kids.
Please excuse our voices today as we go. Angela and I both have colds that we are recovering from. We're getting over it, but they're lingering.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to make it through. But this episode is bonus episode 200, Outsourcing with Amir Nathoo. And we'll talk all about our favorite way to outsource. And then we're going to end, like we always do, with our LTWs, Loving This Week.
We know teaching reading and writing can be a challenge. That's why we're excited to introduce you to Night Zookeeper. Is your child a reluctant writer? Do they struggle with reading? If your answer to either of these questions is yes, then Night Zookeeper may just be what you've been looking for. Night Zookeeper is an online learning program for children ages 6 to 12 years old that uses a gamified and creative approach to help keep kids engaged and focused on developing awesome reading and writing skills, all while having fun at the same time. Some of the features we love include the educational games, the personalized feedback on writing from real tutors, and the super safe community pages where children can work with each other and learn together. If Night Zookeeper sounds like the perfect learning program for your child, you can try it for free by clicking on the link in the show notes. When you register, you'll get a 7-day risk-free trial as well as a huge 50% off an annual subscription. That's a great deal if you ask me.
Did you know my family spent a year traveling around the United States? Yep, I wish I would have known about Blossom and Root back then. Blossom and Root is a nature-focused secular homeschool curriculum focusing on creativity, science, nature, literature, and the arts. Blossom and Root has been gently encouraging and supporting homeschool families around the globe since 2016. Blossom and Root currently offers curricula for pre-K through 5th grade, with new levels being added in the future. Additionally, a 3-volume inclusive history curriculum told from a variety of viewpoints is currently in development. As of August 2022, Volume 1 is available for purchase and Volume 2 is available on pre-sale. All profits from this history curriculum, A River of Voices, will be used to support storytellers and artists from historically excluded communities. You can find samples, scope and sequences, and information about each of their levels online at www.blossomandroot.com. You can also find them on Instagram at Blossom and Root. Blossom and Root has created a special discount for our listeners. Use the code HSUnrefined15 at checkout for 15% off your purchase.
My kids have taken a variety of Outschool classes throughout the years, from math to grammar to Star Wars: The Old Republic. We know kids who love to learn don't just prepare for the future, they create it. That's why Outschool has reimagined online learning to empower kids and teens to expand their creativity, wonder, and knowledge. Empathetic, passionate teachers encourage learners ages 3 to 18 to explore their interests, connect with diverse peers from around the world, and take an active role in leading their learning. Outschool has created a world filled with endless possibilities for every schooling journey. Explore over 140,000 fun and flexible live online classes to find the right fit for your family. And join us as we set learning free. Sign up today at outschooler.me/homeschoolunrefined and get up to $20 off your first class when you enroll with the code UNREFINED.
And we are so excited to have Amir Nathoo, the CEO of Outschool, on our podcast today. I did not have a cold when I did this interview, so it's going to sound a lot better for you. But it is just an inspiring conversation about thinking differently about learning. And so I really hope you enjoy this conversation that I had with Amir. Thank you so much, Amir, for being here today. We're just so excited to have you.
It's a pleasure. I'm really excited to be talking to you.
That's just awesome. Okay, so why don't we just get started where you can give us a little bit of information about yourself, your background, and some of your experiences that you've had.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you shared, my name is Amir Nathoo. I'm co-founder and head of Outschool. I am speaking to you today from San Francisco,
Nice.
where I live and have lived for the last 12 years. You can probably tell from my accent that I grew up in England, so originally moved over here in 2009.
Okay.
And I've always worked in technology and in software from a very young age. That's what I wanted to do. And I wanted to be an entrepreneur for a long time. And so Outschool is my second company, and moved out to the Bay Area initially for work, and then fell in love with the area and the culture and the opportunities here. And I've always been interested in education because both my parents were teachers, and I benefited enormously from that when I was growing up, and not just in terms of like my formal academic education, but even my career in software, because they helped me pursue that as a learning experience outside of school. And so really kind of my own learning experiences and the influence of my parents has guided my creation of Outschool.
That's amazing. So your parents were teachers or educators. What did they teach?
Yeah, my father was a high school physics teacher, and my mum taught part-time. They met in London, studying for physics PhD. So, they taught these technical subjects. But actually, my father came back to teaching. He had worked in the family business for a period of time and then created his own business running a kind of a TV and hi-fi shop. So he always had this combination of, entrepreneurship and learning that was really valuable to me growing up.
Okay, yes, because I was going to ask you, I know your father really did have influence in you in starting Outschool. Was it those experiences, or were there other things too that helped you decide to start Outschool?
Yeah, it's really interesting. When I look back, I've always known he's had a very big influence on me. When I look back, it's now kind of amazing how much, the fact I think that he was, an entrepreneur himself. So we're always talking about business ideas around the kitchen table. And the fact that he was a teacher not only helped me with my own learning, but then as I was reflecting later about what kind of business I wanted to start and what kind of area I wanted to work in, it was very influential from that perspective. But I think one specific thing that happened that was incredibly influential for me in the founding of Outschool was that when I was about somewhere between 5 and 7 years old, my father bought me a computer, an old BBC Micro, to play games on. And, he ran this hi-fi shop and TV shop. And so, computers were sold through shops like that. So he could see these kind of technologies. Thought, oh, that'd be cool. And, I started playing with it. And back in those days, you kind of had to program it in order to
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And then the key moment was like, him finding and my mother, like, spotting that I was interested in that and helping me get resources to pursue that interest. And that's kind of key to the inspiration behind Outschool, was reflecting on that learning experience they helped me find was just so valuable to my life and career. And it was completely outside like normal curriculum. Like nowadays, computer science, these things that people know they're valuable. Back then it was just a toy. They didn't do it because they didn't help me pursue that interest because they thought it was going to turn into anything.
Right. They didn't say, we would like you to learn coding. We know this is the future and you need to learn this. They didn't think that. Yeah.
And the lesson I take away from that isn't that everyone should learn coding. Though, these days, I think that you could probably treat it as a core subject that maybe kids should learn. But instead, it shows the power of the pursuit of interest, both in terms of kind of motivating children and in terms of some of those interests are going to turn out to be extremely important and valuable. It's very hard to pick which.
Yep, exactly. And we don't know today what our kids are going to latch onto and pursue as a career either. And we can't know, and we probably shouldn't. And that's okay. But we do have this power to give them like the freedom to pursue their interests and learn how to learn is really what we talk about a lot, or learning how to love learning. We talk about that on our podcast a lot, just enjoying the process of learning, because when you have the experience of enjoying learning, learning is limitless. The world is your oyster when you love learning.
100%, could not agree more with that.
Yep.
And the other part of that is also, we don't know where the world is going to be in 20 years time.
Exactly.
So we have to prepare our kids with kind of, not only with kind of knowledge that we think they need to know based on our own experience, but we have to recognize that our own knowledge is limited. We can't predict the future, and we have to prepare them for an uncertain and changing world, which for me involves like much greater breadth and focusing on the ability to learn and the confidence, the love of learning, as you say, much more so than, historically in education we've been talking about.
Exactly. Okay. And so these were the experiences you had as a child, and then you went into the tech world and you decided to start Outschool. How did that come about? And how did it start? How did it start working too? I know that it's evolved throughout the years. So what was the beginning of Outschool? Like?
Yeah, totally. It's really fun to reflect on that for me. I founded Outschool in 2015.
Okay.
I've spoken a little bit about some of the inspirations, but a key motivation going in was I knew I wanted to have my own kids. Didn't have kids then. Now I have a 3 3/4-year-old and a 16-month-old.
Oh wow!
And I wanted to build something that they might use and to integrate my future family life with my work. And that got me reflecting on education, my own education, what I would want for them, and some of the topics that we've talked about this realization that, what's needed in the future doesn't seem to, look like the traditional education that I went through, as well as recognizing this discrepancy between what has been most impactful for me versus my formal education. And then combined with that, insights from the tech world. At the time, we were seeing marketplace models really change how various industries were structured. And Lyft and Uber, you could order like a ride share just with a click on a button.
Right.
And it became this realization came, like, why is it that when this technology clearly can make that work, I can't click a button and get a class for my kid? Instead, I have to think about enrolling them in an institution where months and months in advance, where there's a set curriculum that's centrally set. This makes no sense.
Right.
Clearly we could do better from a technology perspective. But then I started thinking, well, why? The technology's there. And I started to realize the limiting factors were, I guess, people's kind of concern about how that would actually work. And people care so much about kids' education, and school and traditional schooling is so embedded in our society. And I started forming this thesis that that's why that it's been kind of slower to change, and but at some point the pressures and the on it were going to become too great. It would have to find a different and better way that's more suited to the future. And so I started looking around saying, well, who's innovating, not from a technology perspective, but from a social perspective?
Right.
And that's why I discovered homeschooling. And, I had certain preconceptions about homeschooling, which, I'm sure you and your listeners are very familiar with, and lots of people have those preconceptions.
Yes.
But when I learned about it more, I realized, this isn't what I expected. And not only that, but I thought that there were many parts of it which looked like what the future of education should be. And that no one from a technology perspective was helping enable this kind of kind of activity. And that's really when the light bulb moment came off, like there's this match between what technology can provide, what is needed for the future, and there's this existing community who's already kind of living in the future.
Can I ask you, what were the things that you saw in homeschool that you thought, this is different than what I thought? These are actually really great things that I'm seeing in homeschooling. What were some of those things?
Well, first off, the realization that homeschooling was not people staying at home alone.
Yeah, exactly.
With their parents. I mean, it's more obvious now that more people have experienced learning alternative forms of learning through the pandemic, but it wasn't obvious from an outsider then. And I know, now it just seems kind of silly that people think that. But that was the first kind of people aren't just at home. They are collaborating with fellow parents. They're bringing in teachers, having a social experience. And then, the other pieces were, parents reporting that they could keep up with the standard curriculum, standard requirements with much less effort.
Yes.
If you are more willing to go with the flow, don't try and get kids to learn at 8 a.m. if that's not what they want to do.
Exactly.
Instead, wait until they're ready, and then you get rid of a whole bunch of kind of resistance or issues. And then, you don't have to deal with the constraints of an institution that has to have this rigid schedule and everything that comes along with that.
Right.
And so it was just like really eye-opening and really inspiring. And then one more thing, sorry, I can wax lyrical about this for ages, reflect on this. One more thing was just like the ability to pursue interests. Like a parent told me, hey, my kid wanted to learn about volcanoes for a week. And instead of just doing like one session on volcanoes, we just spent the entire week on volcanoes. And we studied science through volcanoes. We studied geography and geology through volcanoes. We did art. We drew volcanoes. So it's not like you're not doing the subjects by focusing on that interest, but allowed them to kind of create an arc with a family that really used the fact that the kid was so interested in it.
Exactly.
And that just seemed like so different and so much better than what a traditional system could offer, at least back then.
Yes. And it's also internally motivated too. When your child is interested in volcanoes, you cannot help but learn all about everything about volcanoes. I mean, just everything. It's just, they want it all. And it's all just so natural and the most motivating way to learn. And it's efficient. It's like the most efficient way to learn. It all just happens so effectively.
Yes.
So that's awesome. Okay. So then when you started Outschool, you had a few classes, or how did it start?
Well, even before founding the company, best practice is like test the idea, is this that can work? Is this something that anyone will be willing to kind of pay for?
Sure.
And the theory was that, if there could be a platform that could take some of the burden away from organizing these learning experiences from families, then that's something that will be valuable and that will be. And, I found a friend who was at the time a postgraduate researcher at UCSF who was doing this really interesting research in stem cell biology. And I said, hey, could you teach this, but to a group of gifted 12-year-olds who I know are like interested in science that they couldn't necessarily get in the regular textbook.
Right.
And he said, yeah, I can do that. I told them all about like what the theory was and what we're trying to do here. And then, I got connected with a group of, gifted homeschoolers in the Bay Area. And I asked one of the parents this, hey, would you mind sounding out your community whether they like this? And then the resounding answer came, yes, it was sold out within 5 minutes.
I'm sure it was.
And
sounds amazing.
And then the next one, and we started with these in-person experiences, but just like testing the waters and in the local area. And then I think the second one was a tour of a local business. Another friend had this warehouse where they were making iPad cases. Cool. And I thought, well, this is cool. Like, he's an entrepreneur. Like, and also this is like visible physical goods. So, let's take a group of kids around, to show them the manufacturing processes, older teens interested in entrepreneurship and interested in craft. Again, just like sold out, like within it.
I believe that too.
Before there was even a website or a product, it was just like emails saying, back and forth in these lists. And at that point, I realized there was really something here that if we could create a marketplace of these kind of experiences, and not just those that I described, but like any kind of experience, whether it's like academic or career-based or social and emotional or, anything, then that was going to be very valuable. And no one was doing anything like that at the time, the initial early steps.
That reminds me of, this is what I love about Outschool too, is that everyone is an expert. All the teachers on there are just so amazing at what they do, and their little niche it's priceless. I mean, you are not going to get that in even a school setting, because teachers, I've been one of them. I was a public school teacher for 8 years, and you can't be an expert in every topic that you teach. You just cannot. It's impossible. But one of our favorite classes that 2 of my kids took was an Outschool class called the Biology Coloring Club. And I actually posted about it on Instagram last week. And especially my oldest daughter absolutely loved it. It was super interactive without pressure though, because like there was no test, there was no final project that needed to be presented. It was just about this internal learning. And kids got to color these very intricate, beautiful like systems of the body. And the teacher, who is a doctor, gave the kids like these super interesting facts about this system of the body. And my daughter learned so much that like she's been inspired to pursue science
career. And
Wow.
she's just like thinking about all these. She's just, because she's actually was like such an artist before we knew that, but like this class really brought art into science. And it was just kind of like this explosion of learning and growth and like awareness that she could use her creativity in science actually too. Science innately is, you have to be pretty creative to, like think of possibilities and outside the box and things like that. But this class kind of like brought it all together. Anyway, I can see the value of all the varieties of ways you can learn on Outschool, because we've experienced them personally ourselves. So can you tell us about like some of those options and how they've, what you can choose from and how kids might be able to learn on Outschool?
Yeah, and you've really captured so much of it, and I'm so grateful that your daughters enjoyed that class. But you captured it in that we have these teachers who create these really unique, compelling classes that really play to their strengths and their skills. And in fact, we encourage teachers as part of their onboarding, hey, like teach things that you personally are passionate about in ways that you are excited about, but that will come through in the class. And that's how you get, this, doctor teaching biology coloring. And, we have now 140,000 classes on the site. So there's tremendous variety across all subjects, anything that you can imagine, some stuff that you can't imagine. And, some of the classes that jump out to me are things like the science of farts. Parents love it, but it's actually really good science. Kids love it because farts are hilarious. And so everyone's happy.
Exactly.
And, that's the thing. Often in education, it's the case, parents feel like they have to make the kid do this, but the kid's not really interested. We're trying to avoid that. It's possible to avoid that. You just need to have like a bit of creativity as a parent and a teacher. And, the approach where we take this marketplace-based approach where we don't insist on any particular curriculum lets that to happen. So that's one example. I'm clicking through a couple of others on the site right now.
Great.
There's one called Being a Good Friend.
I love that.
The power of confident communication and getting along.
Yeah.
So social and emotional learning. The weirdest things animals do and why. Let's bust some common animal myths. You can see how this is both interesting for kids and involves some cool learning. And then we have classes on trigonometry, advanced trigonometry. And, if your kid is ahead on that, then this is an opportunity to kind of double down on an interest in math, create a business to help humanity, an entrepreneurship course. So we have just this tremendous variety. And, like I've now seen it work for myself because, I found it Outschool. I didn't have kids yet. I wanted to have kids. Now I have a 3 3/4-year-old. On his 3rd birthday, of course, what did I do? I took the day off work.
Sign him up for something? Yeah.
I know Outschool. So let me try this out. And thankfully, he loved it.
Awesome.
There was this potential kind of path where I'd created this product and company, and then he didn't like it. But thankfully, he loves it. And he's now in lots of classes. And it's incredible to see the development. I did not sign him up to class, I'm with the intent of like making him more advanced. That's not really how I think about education or my aspirations for him. I'm not trying to get him into a fancy college or like be ahead anyway. And at the same time, taking these interest-based classes has just up-leveled him in terms of confidence, interaction, and some of the content that he's learning in terms of reading and writing and numbers. And so, I see that firsthand too.
Yes, that's awesome. I see that. I see the value in, like I said, like this process of learning. Our kids are practicing learning and loving to learn too, because like I was thinking of some other classes, like my kids have taken city planning, but it's all based on Legos. So cool. That was awesome. Also, my kids have gone down phases of like, they've been really into frogs. And so we signed up for like a life cycle of frogs class, and then also got to show our frogs to the class, the frogs that we've been catching. And so it just, it actually, I think, also gives value to what they're interested in. It gives them value. It's like, this is actually an official learning. This is learning. And so it's just so empowering. And so that's another reason why I absolutely love Outschool. And then something like trigonometry, where I, would be so overwhelmed to even think about teaching a class like trigonometry, to be able to hand that over to someone who really does know and love trigonometry is very relieving to me.
Absolutely. And there's definitely a room for that. You don't have to, and you shouldn't have to do it all yourself as a
no. And that's the
parent.
great thing about homeschooling now in today versus 20 years from now. You can sign up for a class that it's all encompassing. It's just right there. And the people who teach these classes are just really passionate about it. So it's just a win-win for sure. I know there are lots of kids, including my own, who have learning differences, who really do well in Outschool classes. Can you tell us more about that? How you keep kids in mind who learn differently and how they can be successful with Outschool classes?
100%. And there's multiple parts to that. And we have many kids and families in Outschool classes with identified learning differences. But I also like to say that every kid is different and unique.
Exactly. So true.
And the power of recognizing the identified learning differences and catering for them is that you actually benefit all kids.
Yes.
And so a large part of it was just like how the community developed, because the initial set of teachers were very familiar with those learning differences within various homeschooling communities and sub-communities.
Right.
And families were sensitive to them as well. So the very start of Outschool always had that built in. And then over time that attracted more and more families and teachers who were able to handle those learning differences. And we've now built in training into our teacher programs on how to do that for teachers that might have less experience coming in and serving learners with unique needs.
Right.
Some of it's also just innate in the model, because with a marketplace-based approach, people are self-selecting in. So your learner, depending on how they want to interact and what the subject is, can pick the right class and teacher. And it's low stakes. If you try it and it's really not gelling, then just take another class. You can take one-time classes or ongoing classes where you just go week by week, rather than kind of committing up front to something that you don't know might work for your learner. So all of that helps support kids with learning differences, whether explicitly identified or otherwise. And also I also think one of the benefits of this this online mode of learning over video chat is, again, it's lower stakes. It's still social, but you could, there are different ways to engage through chat or through speaking. You don't have to unmute.
Yes.
And worst case, it's on a computer. You can always just shut the laptop if you become very, very uncomfortable.
Yep.
So I think all of that lends itself to being a positive way for kids with learning differences to engage, and that's something that we really want to keep as we grow Outschool as a community and as a business.
Yep, that's awesome. And I also think it's just so focused on the experience rather than the outcome. I think that's a really big part for kids with learning differences. It's just about the learning. It's just about, either the connection or the content you're learning, the interest. And we're not worried about we're not going to give you a grade or tell you what your outcome really needs to be necessarily. I know there are some classes where you share things, which is really community oriented too, which I love. Yeah. We've done writing classes where everybody brings a piece of writing and we share it. And then they learn how to give positive feedback. And it's just amazing. So I love that too, but it's never about there's no shame in your outcome, which is, I think, what a lot of kids learn in school, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, and then also I think you just mentioned you do have some mental health classes as well. Well, there was a social emotional learning class that you talked about. Can you tell us more about that too? What those classes how they might support kids, especially today, after, we've gone through a pandemic, and kids, I think, right now, a lot of them are suffering, with mental health issues, and just wondering how Outschool can support that.
Yeah, it's a huge area and it's a huge problem right now. And, I don't think it's just the pandemic. I think there's many things about our society and education which are causing this. And, as a result, we see on Outschool tremendous demand and also, supply of classes around supporting kids. For example, I'm just looking at class right now, Warri University, Strategies to Increase Calm and Reduce Anxiety. So these kind of social and emotional learning classes, groups where there is support and advice, and
Yes.
identity-based groups so kids can connect with others where they might not have that connection or support locally for various reasons. We don't do medical kind of therapy,
Sure.
or any kind of individualized learning plan that falls into the realm of medical services, which
Absolutely,
for various reasons, this isn't quite the right format for those services. But in terms of social and emotional learning, that's a very big part of what Outschool offers with these classes that, again, you would not typically get in normal school.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Yeah. That's what another thing I love about Outschool is that there are classes for the whole, it's for the whole child, not just academic-y things that are required of them, but just, it's really supporting the whole child, which I love. So do you have any favorite classes on Outschool that you really love?
I talked about a few, like the science of farts. One other one that was a real surprise for us was there's one, well, there's now several, in fact, many on Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh,
And the
fun.
first one was learning critical thinking skills through Dungeons and Dragons. And
So great.
we never thought that a class like that could become successful. But when it was first posted, it became one of the most successful classes on the platform within just a few months. And it just goes to show that people really dig this combination of kind of important kind of hard skills with fun. So that was a great example of that. And then another set of classes, and there's several different kinds of them, are like writing workshops, creative writing taught through Minecraft, where the kids are using Minecraft on the side, as well as the Zoom kind of video chat to talk to the teachers. That
is so great.
Yeah. And it's just matching kids' interest with kind of skills or that parents are excited for their kids to learn, and keeps everyone happy and engaged, and promotes a love of learning.
Exactly. Yeah. You're meeting the kids where they're at and going from there, which creates this phenomenal environment. I just love that so much. What do you see as the future of Outschool from here on out? Where is it going? And maybe even in general of education, where is education going?
Yeah. And, I hope the two are quite linked, because we hope to have like a big positive impact on, the future of Outschool that I want to see is to create this global learning community where kids and parents are able to find like exactly the right learning group for their kid at the right time with the right teacher to really engage them and move them forward. And the larger our community gets, the more classes we can offer, the more teachers we can support, and as a result, the kind of better match we can find for kids with all kinds of needs. And we have been very fortunate to serve about 1 million learners to date, which is
amazing
large number, and I'm so grateful for all those families. I also recognize that there's 58 million K-12 age learners in the US, and so many more worldwide. And we have an opportunity to create, a different kind of learning experience for many, many kids. And one part of that that's really inspiring to me is that I believe that if kids around the world had positive learning experiences with each other at a young age, with others from different socioeconomic backgrounds, or different countries or different parts of society, then that would create a lot more empathy and would help towards some of the issues that we see in the world today. So that's what I hope for Outschool, and the hope for the impact that we have in education more generally. I hope for change. I hope for change in how we think about what's important in kids' education, to focus on this love of learning and the ability to learn, rather than being so fixated on performance against specific rubrics or subjects. And I hope we can have education change to be more dynamic, kid focused and future looking.
Absolutely. Oh, I hope so. I hope Outschool influences the way we educate all of our kids, because it is a model. I think it's a model. And I hope schools see that. I hope that schools see that, because it would just, what a great combination that would be. I don't know, just to be able to utilize Outschool so much more.
Yeah,
I get excited about this kind of stuff. I get so excited about it.
I do too, and that's what I hope. And but I think we have a lot of work to do, because
we do.
Use on education is so entrenched that it's going to take time, and it's going to take examples to shift. And that's why I'm so grateful to be kind of part of it, along with your community, and grateful for the work that you're doing to kind of spread some of these messages about what education could be.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. All right. Where can we find you?
So I always love hearing from our community. Feel
Awesome.
free to email me at amir@outschool.com. Outschool.com is our website. I hope many of you are familiar with it.
Yes.
If you're not, would love to see you there. You can also find me on Twitter, Amir Nathoo. So those are the places where I live online.
Great. And then also just a reminder, if you sign up with our personal link, it is outschooler.me/homeschoolunrefined. You will get up to $20 off your first class if you enroll with the code unrefined. So keep that in mind. I highly suggest it. You probably won't stop at one class, just so you know. All right. Thank you so much, Amir. We appreciate you so much and everything you're doing.
Thank you. And likewise, it's been a pleasure to talk.
You too. Bye.
Bye now.
All right, let's move on to our LTWs, our loving this week.
Yes.
Myron, what are you loving this week?
All right. Okay. So I am loving a new laundry detergent. And I got this specifically for certain need that I had. So it is called Hex, HEX, Performance Fragrance-Free Laundry Detergent. And I picked it out because it's specifically for sports gear and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And I got it because, these, the shirts that you get for working out. It's like this material that's, what I'm talking about.
Performance.
Yes. And especially like my husband and I both actually have these shirts. And for some reason, the odor stays in them, even after I wash them with any kind of laundry detergent that I've ever used.
Okay.
I mean, I'm going for like the strongest stuff, like whatever, and nothing has worked to get it's even sometimes not even a bad smell. It's like deodorant smell or something,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's just not coming out. And so it's just the material, I guess. I don't know. Maybe other people have had this issue too. They must have. But I found this Hex Performance laundry detergent. And it's so great. I use it just for Sean and my shirts like that because it's like the only thing that gets out this odor, and it's fragrance free, which I really like because I don't actually want lingering other odor either. Although I think you can get different fragrances if you prefer.
Okay.
So
you don't use it on all your laundry, just
I don't. I really
Okay.
don't. I just use it specifically for our shirts.
All right. Where do you get it? Amazon?
I got it on Target at Target.com.
Okay.
So yeah.
Thanks for sharing. I'm going to have to check that out because actually I'm running out of my laundry detergent and I was just thinking I need to find something new. So
you might like
that
this.
out.
Yep. All right, Angela, what are you loving this week?
All right. I'm loving a show that's back and I'm not even embarrassed about it. It's Love is Blind 3.
Okay.
Season 3.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if anybody else is watching. If you are, hit me up because I'm going to need to discuss. As of right now, I'm like 1 or 2 episodes from the end, but I'm going to finish it. Probably by the time this comes out, I'll have finished it.
Yeah.
Because what I like about it is Jeremy and I binge together because he's just as into it as I am. And I'm always looking for a show that grabs our attention and makes us want to keep going to the next episode.
Yeah.
If you've been around a while, Jeremy, he goes to bed early and he has good boundaries around sleep. He has really good boundaries.
Yeah.
He doesn't let a binge get to him. And even this show he'll watch with me, not super late, but he'll watch like an episode and a half, or he'll stretch it out a little longer than he normally would. And so I'm happy about that. So it's totally, just for fun. This is just for fun.
It is. Yes. Yeah.
Have you watched?
I think I only watched season 1 because I'm trying to think. There was a season 2.
Yeah.
How did I miss that? 3. Well, now I have more to watch.
I also like it. This is going to sound really weird, but we talk about relationships when we watch it and how we connect it to our relationship, or that's going to work or that's never going to work. I don't know. It's just fun to discuss relationship dynamics with Jeremy.
That's so great.
So it's on Netflix. You should watch it. I like it because it's contained. It's 10 episodes.
And you can binge it.
Easy. It's a binger. Okay.
That's great. All right. Well, thank you, Angela.
Yep.
And thank you to our 3 sponsors, Blossom and Root, Outschool, and Night Zookeeper. Be sure to check out their links in our show notes.
This podcast is created and hosted by Angela Sizer and Maren Gorse. We are listener supported. To get extra content and the Back to School Summit free with your membership, go to patreon.com/homeschoolunrefined. Subscribe to our newsletter and get our free top 100 inclusive book list at homeschoolunrefined.com/newsletter. You can find Marin on Instagram at unrefinedmarin and at Always Learning with Marin. You can find Angela at unrefinedangela.